And welcome back to the Music Bar Podcast. This is episode 50, and as you can see, we have a guest. I've invited Dan back just for the episode 50 and to talk about something which is very passionate to him. But just people who haven't seen the show before, Dan was my co-anchor for quite some time until last year Christmas. He got sick, and then had to just leave the show. So just a quick update on yourself, Dan. How are you going with all that?
Oh, look, after 4 months, I am feeling a lot better. Complications from the virus that is going around. I don't want to say it because I don't want to put a tag on this video or anything because that's what will happen. But complications from that, which inflamed a long dormant disease that was in my body. So it's permanently affected me. But I am slowly on the mend. And look, if you'd have seen me even 3-4 weeks ago, I wouldn't have been. I was still in hospital, so it's great to be back. And Chris has been doing such a fantastic job. His videos are just great now. And I the 50th. This is it. This is the 50th, and I want. It's like, oh, I'd like to be part of the 50th. I'd like to come on every now and then too, and just put in my 2 cents worth in on the Music Bar podcast anyway.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. It's always interesting to have different points of view for things. So, and that's one of the reasons when you did ask, can you do the 50th with me? I had an idea of something we could do anyway. I like talking to people. I like talking to you. It's more fun chatting to other people as well.
Yep.
But I have been enjoying the process for doing it on my own as well, which has been completely different to what I expected. But we're going to touch base today. You and I have discussed this in the past quite a bit. There's a whole saga going on with Motley Crüe. And when you said you wanted to come on and do the 50th with me, I said to you straight away, can you talk about Motley Crüe? Because that was kind of your story beforehand.
Yep.
The understanding of it all and what was going on. And I'm sure you have a lot to say about it right now. It seems to be getting worse and worse for a lot of them. But I'll hand it over to you right now from kind of like where it all started from and what it is now and any thoughts to the future. So, Dan, over to you. Motley Crüe. Well, what the hell is going on?
It all started when they basically did the stadium tour last year, co-headlining with Def Leppard. Saw some footage. I wasn't overly impressed, but the tour was a success. And they announced they were going to Europe and possibly coming to Australia with this tour. Then Mick Mars, it was announced that Mick was leaving the band. Now, you and I talked about this. Mick has had ankylosing spondylitis for as long as he's been alive, I suppose. I almost have a similar disease. Mine affects my cartilage now. His affects the bones, fuses the bones in his body and that's why he walks funny and everything. Still, though, didn't affect his guitar playing. I thought that's fair enough. You thought fair enough. Then John Corabi, of all people, came forward and said, if you ask me, knowing how those guys in Motley Crüe think, Mick was kicked out of the band. And you put that up and said, this is interesting. I didn't pay much attention to it. I think John's just looking for a bit of a headline. But when someone who has no skin in the game, a guy like Carmine Appice, one of the world's great session drummers, played for Rod Stewart, one of his brother Vinny played for Rod Stewart. I think Carmine played for Black Sabbath, or one or the other. They're both of them great, amazing session drummers. When he comes through and says, I'm friends with Mick Mars, and let me tell you something, those guys, I'm like, they kicked him out. Mick was kicked out of the band. And Nicky came out and called Carmine a washed-up drummer, and eventually the truth will come out. Now, I don't know. I wouldn't be taking on Italian Americans in any capacity whatsoever. But Nicky's got that blood in him too, and Nicky decided to almost pick a fight. I think Carmine let Sleeping Dogs lie, but it came out then Mick sued the band. Basically what it's come down to is they have said, well, seeing as you're no longer touring with the band or any of that capacity, we're going to cut your earnings down from 25%. Now, I didn't realize they all had an equal share. I thought Nicky had the lion's share of this band, but clearly this is all part of it now. They all have an equal share. Now, Mick wrote a ton of those old songs too. He co-wrote them with Nicky or whatever. He's suing them because they've knocked him down to 5%. And in the meantime, they've hired John 5 to do the European tour. And we all thought, you and I thought, well, if someone's going to replace Mick, and when it was all seemed very above board, we all saw, John 5. Now, John 5, I don't know if he's on a partnership with Motley Crüe, but I wouldn't be surprised he's probably on some kind of salary. So he will have no say in what's going on. But Nicky Motley Crüe has countersued Mick, saying that he was incompetent, he was playing the wrong songs, he was playing the wrong chords. Now, Chris, you and I have watched a lot of these videos, live videos. You've seen them probably more recently than I have. And I from what I can see, I don't think Mick he's the one holding that thing together. If anyone's singing the bum notes, it's bloody Vince Neil. And they were playing along to tracks, which a lot of the B acts do, but they were playing along to tracks and stuff. Now, what got my goat was that it didn't have to come to this. Motley Crüe should have left it alone. Clearly, I think they've come back with an inferior product. I think they're coming back. This is all a bit of a money-making thing. Those guys aren't, they're not the guys that did the 2015 The End tour. It's 8 years, there's a lot of water's under the bridge. Are they still capable of playing their instruments? Apparently, Nicky's not even playing bass. That's according to Mick Mars, somewhere along the line. And I got really cranky because I thought, this is not what it was all meant to be about. This is now just, I feel like, open your wallets and come and give us your money. Yeah. The other thing that got me in this, I think John 5 is going to be the innocent product in this. And you sent me some stuff saying they're back in the studio with Bob Rock recording, saying that John 5 has got us all reinvigorated. I am really concerned that in the light of all this, that Nicky is going to do a Sharon Osbourne. Now, if you're not familiar with it, basically Bob Daisley, and I can't remember who was the drummer, but the bass player, Bob Daisley, and the drummer who played on Blizzard of Oz for Ozzy Osbourne, they tried to sue Sharon Osbourne for royalties because they co-wrote most of those songs on Blizzard of Oz. Ozzy was too out of it to write a song. Those guys really held that, and Randy Rhoads came in as guitarist. What Sharon did was she got Jason Newsted and Mike Borden to re-record the bass and drum parts on Blizzard of Oz for all the remasters and the re-releases, thus negating their share of royalties, of performance royalties and things like that. Kiss have done it too with one of the greatest hits compilations. They got Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer to re-record Ace Frehley and Peter Criss's part. I am worried that Nicky is going to get John 5 to re-record Mick's parts and put them on subsequent remasters. This concerns me because this really does show me that it's all about the dollars and cents in the end. And if it comes down to court and lawsuits, there is no love lost between these guys. It's all a business, which it always is. And music's all a business. But, Metallica can get through this. I've lost my faith in Motley Crüe. I lost it, man. I've completely lost it. So I couldn't
just touch base quickly. You said that you didn't know the drummer's name for Blizzard of Oz. That was Lee Kerslake.
Lee Kerslake, thank you so much, Lee Kerslake. And
you've also said a moment ago that I'm not sure if you said it before, when Mick Mars originally decided to call it a day, that was stated back then as only a touring player. He wasn't going to.
That's correct.
Anymore. He was still part of the band. Motley Crüe came out and said he's still part of Motley Crüe. He's just not touring because of health reasons. And everybody understood. So when everyone understood that John 5 was taking his spot, no one cared because it was like, we understand. Mick Mars is not well. So what do you do? Okay, keep going. So he toured. And then they went and started the European one. And that was the start of, okay, what's happening behind the scenes? Because we know John 5 wrote some songs with Motley Crüe for the Dirt movie. So it's not like he's new to the fold. He's been friends with them for a long time. And my biggest fear was that they're going to come back out and start recording. And like I said to you the other day, I sent you texts hashtag Bob Rock, blah, 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 blah. There he is in the recording studio, the four of them.
Yep.
They've now released photos of Motley Crüe, new photos of Motley Crüe with John Five instead of Mick Mars. So everything that's said at the beginning is now gone out the window. Motley Crue's back, new guitar player, Mick Mars is gone, back to 5%. That 5% was only holding him because of the music he was going to play in the future and the past. The touring money was gone. Oh, it's a mess. And
you're not wrong, Chris. It's a bloody mess. And as you said, we were originally under the impression, and everyone I think accepted, the fans accepted that. Yeah, look, understood. Mick can't tour anymore. We get it. John Five, what a top replacement. If you're going to go see him, John Five's great. But when you see now, oh, by the way, no, Mick's no longer in the band.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to tour, and I think one of their statements was, if you're not in the touring band, you're not in the band. And now we're all, hey, wait a minute. And this whole thing of going in the studio and trying to sort of act like everything's rosy and keen. Oh, I don't know, Chris. I don't know, man.
I did send to you also a link the other day, I think on Facebook. I tagged you in it, of the Inner Ear recordings of Mick Mars.
Yes.
Did you listen to it?
I've heard them before. They've come out before, but I have heard them before. Yes,
because they weren't good.
Yeah. Oh dear. So they're coming out and saying that Mick's, he's off.
That was Mick Mars, and that's what people are hearing. Mick Mars' guitar playing in the Inner Ear recordings. If that is actually what I heard, the truth, he wasn't playing guitar very well. He was missing things constantly. So that's also a concern, but that doesn't mean he can't record music. That means you can't play.
That's right, yes. That's exactly right. Yeah, and he's by his own admission, he can't really play live, but he's coming out and saying, I carried those bastards for years. That's his words.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, I look at these things and I think, well, thank God it's not me. I'm just a fan. I've got a simple life, and I'm glad I don't have to deal with all those monster egos and all that sort of stuff. I'm glad I don't have to do it, Chris. So, yeah. But, I understand. I'm surprised Mick lasted as long as he has, playing he has with the pain that he's in and with the disease that he's got, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally get that.
Well, let's watch this space, I guess. Like you said, you hope Nikki Sixx doesn't do the whole thing like Sharon Osbourne did. So I guess that will be next online if we do see something like that. But
I'm keeping an eye on it, mate. Believe me, I'm keeping an eye on it. And if it happens, I know you'll come back and say, Dan, you were right.
Yeah.
Because they're not all past it.
Point of that too, it's not the first time a band have changed guitar players or singers or something. So I don't mind if John Five's in Motley Crüe. The way they went around it is the problem I have with it all. But I'm also thinking if he's not playing very well live, he's probably not playing very well sitting in the studio either. It might take some time. I don't know. Anyway. I like John Five. I missed out on his tour here. They postponed it 3 times, I think it was, and then he disappeared and went to Motley Crüe. So, watch his space, I guess. But anyway. While I got you, and it is a 50th episode. Do you have a high point of our last 50? Like one point in that 50?
Look, you kind of really sprung it on me, and I have thought about a few of the podcasts that we've done, but the one that really did stand out for me, I don't know if it did for you, was when we talked with you about religion and heavy metal and how you grew up in a very religious household, liking the music that you did. That to me was really, I still think about that. It was really insightful. And I still think, Chris used to have to hide almost, listen to those metal records and what an interesting world, and because believe it or not, the Satanic Panic's come back again in the form of Sam Smith. We won't go into that. But if Sam Smith's the most deadly thing in the world at the moment, I think the world's doing all right as far as that's all concerned. But yeah, I really do, and I still think about that one. And I mean, we talked about so many topics. We talked about long songs. I did like the interview with your friend. I forget
Corey.
his name. Corey, yes, and he's talking about drumming and playing with bands. I really did enjoy that. We've had a lot of episodes that I thought were really great, but they're probably the two that stand out for me at the moment. What about you, Chris?
I did enjoy the episode with Corey. I think it was episode 30, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Corey was a drummer back in the day, or still is now, in different bands around
Yes.
Australia. He's done quite well for himself in that sense. So having him back on, having him on the show as our very first guest and only guest, to be honest, was really nice to catch up with him on that way and talk drums. Because
Until Belinda Carlisle answers your invitation.
Oh, Belinda Carlisle. Anyway, yeah, so that kind of thing was always good. I like some of the topics we did back then when we first started too. I enjoyed the ones about greatest guitar players and drummers.
Yep.
The bands that have stuck around for a long time. That how we've gone from cassette, vinyl to CD, back to vinyl,
Yep.
cassette. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but right there, I've got my vinyl Metallica album.
I see that right there.
I've got my vinyl. I've got my cassette of Metallica. So
it's like the vinyl. It's like the vinyl had a baby.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it's just fun having that stuff again. I've always enjoyed the big. We've discussed it. You go into a record bar and you look at, you go through and you see the artwork and you go, it attracts you straight away to it. You don't know who they are, but you go through it all. You see the artwork and then you open it up and you go, wow, this is amazing. So that's what I love about the vinyl.
Imagine, when I was a kid, especially in the late 70s, going through, seeing the Bat Out of Hell cover and the Kiss covers.
Exactly.
Oh, it was like, whoa, what is this? And when you saw Iron Maiden in the early 80s, it was like, what is
Power Slave?
Try Killers.
Yeah, exactly.
Try Killers, seeing that cover, and you're like, I've got to own that record.
I have to say, overall, of all our 50 episodes, but also just the podcast channel, because I've done that Get On It now for quite a while too. And I've actually, I thought of the idea of Get On It because I wanted to go back and tell people about albums that you and I grew up on, that we could just do a quick 1 minute or 2 minute segment on to get people to go back and listen to this stuff that we really enjoy. And one of my favorites that you did actually was on Jane's Addiction, and the song, I can't remember the name of the album to be honest, but I don't listen to the
Ritual de lo Habitual.
That's the one. I can never pronounce that. But yeah, they've got a song in there called 3 Days. And I remember I thought, well, you did a Get On It. I never heard the album. So I was driving the Gold Coast still quite a lot. And I was driving around in the truck when I used to work in that job back then. And I'd put on the album to make sure I knew when you discussed it next time how good it was or how bad it was. And I had a listening of it. So when I reached 3 Days, that did not come off the playlist for days. I'll listen to that song on repeat over and over and over and over again. And I still do sometimes go, right, 3 days, it's on next. And I'll put that on and just play it and play it and play it because I think it's a great, great track. So that's one of the highlights I got from the podcast, but also the Get On It segment. I think it's just amazing.
Well, Chris, that fills me with joy. And I'll tell you now, when I was in hospital, I listened to 3 Days quite a lot. It's a song that got me through, man. It's a song that got me through. So, that fills me with joy, Chris. That fills me with joy.
And I won't discuss the two low points. Stormfront.
Oh yeah.
And I won't discuss.
You brought it up. I just remembered it now, actually. Yes.
And I won't discuss the other one, which was the other one you did.
The Brian Eno record.
The Brian.
I still love that record, and I don't care what anyone says. I love music for airports.
Whatever it was.
Music for airports. Yes.
Yeah, that was funny. Anyway, speaking of Metallica, I asked you because this is our first episode since the album came out, but you've obviously heard the first 4 songs. We've discussed those in the past.
Yeah.
What do you think of the album?
I really like it. I listened to it again yesterday. It grooves along. It moves along very nicely. I think I said to you, I really enjoy Rob's bass playing on it.
Yeah.
You could, you could really hear it. It's really well recorded, this record. And I watched your video when you talked about Inamorata, how you didn't like it when you first listened to the song. And I was the complete opposite. But mind you, I probably heard it within context, as in the whole album from start to finish. And I really, really liked it. Yeah, but I'm listening to the album. There's probably only one song on it that I don't care for that much. The rest of them they just move along. They got great riffs, great groove, great. Oh, I'm in there, and I'm limited way I can bang my head now, but I really, really like it. So yeah, the new Metallica album, it's got my vote. I really, really dig it. I'm not going to say it's my album of the year yet, because the new DZ Death Rays is coming out in June, and I loved their last two records. So I'm looking, and that one's called RIFFS Riffs. And yeah, the DZ Death Rays one I'm really looking forward to. But oh yeah, I really like it. 72 seasons, and it's a growing record on me. But all those songs have made their way on the playlist, and I like that. One critic pointed out, "Sleepwalk My Life Away" or "Sleepwalk Your Life Away" has the same musical motif as Enter Sandman.
Oh, there you go.
And a lot of people have pointed that out and said, yes, it's like not a sequel song, but it's what, like Frank Zappa came up with the name of it, conceptual continuity. Whereas it sounds, like you've got musical motifs that go through all your music, so you can listen to it all as one piece of music, one individual song, or one whole album, or whatever. And I think there's a little bit of that going on 72 Seasons. So I think if you probably listen to the record and probably want to get all weird and mathematic like all those Tool fans, you might hear. I reckon there's stuff on there that goes right back.
It's funny you say
to
that.
the first album.
When I first heard the album, I think you've obviously seen my podcast about it, so I don't know if I told you this or not in text or anything, but when I first heard it at 3:00 in the morning, I actually had COVID.
Oh, wow.
I was actually sick for 4 days. I got sick on the 13th of April, and the 14th was when the album was released. So I was actually.
You tell me you were ill.
Pardon?
You told me you were ill, but I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, we had COVID go through the house. So my son didn't get it, but Mrs. and I did. So I woke up at 3 in the morning, listened to that last track because I was hoping it would be an epic song. And that's pretty part of the fact that I wasn't in the mood to listen to it, to be honest, but I still did. But anyway, I actually, when I started listening to the album and I realized how good it actually was, and it grew on me really quickly, like I really enjoyed it, I started thinking about the music and the songs and the way they were written and the simplicity, but how effective they were. And I kind of thought to myself, I think they could have slotted this album in between the Black and the Load, or even just after the loads, the Load and Unload. Well, it seemed very similar to me in a sense, but heavier.
Yes.
And faster.
I'd agree with that. I'm not, but now that we're talking about it out loud and the whole, I reckon because the whole album is called 72 Seasons and it is about those first 18 years of your life. So why wouldn't you look back? I reckon it bears some investigation. Yeah. But there might be some little musical motifs throughout the whole album that go right back to Kill 'Em All almost. Doesn't have to be, it's not as thrashy as Kill 'Em All, but there's moments in there where you just think, I've heard this before. I really felt that. And it was a sense of familiarity about the record. They weren't breaking new ground. They weren't trying to break new ground, but maybe they're looking back in Metallica's own weird way. And as I said, like Tool fans, they go back and obsess over their records and go through and, I wonder if there's a bit of that. I mean, you can look into it and see anything if you want, but could be a bit of a journey for you, Chris. It's a homework assignment for you.
Could be. Before we do go, I'll just quickly touch base, just quickly ask, you mentioned the Death Rays new album coming out. Obviously, Metallica's come out. There is one more to come out, which I'm looking forward to greatly, which is Extreme, number 6. And
yes.
That's coming out soon. I've already heard 3 tracks. What do you think of that so far, what you've heard?
I like the last one, that #Rebel came out. Yeah. I really did. I like that one. It makes me think, though, when I hear, Nuno, what a guitarist. That first song that came out, Rise, the guitar playing and his solo playing on that was just out of this world, and it made you And, like, is he the new Eddie Van Halen? But it made me think of what you said about Eddie and his 10-second guitar solos.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, too long, too long,
Yeah.
too long.
Well, that solo he did on Rise, he's talked about it a few times because everybody came out and talked about it and how it was kind of like a bit of an ode to Eddie Van Halen. And he was kind of trying to keep the shred that Eddie does alive, and I think he's done wonders in that. I think I've done a get on it about that song. But since then, those 2 new songs have come out. I think he's going to be up there, like get more acknowledgement of how great he is as a guitar player. I think when this album comes out,
Yeah,
that he never had in the past.
Look, I remember reading an article years ago. It was on crack.com when they're talking about people who are secret musical geniuses that no one knows about. And Nuno Bettencourt was one that came up. They said no one talks about him. And he's the one that in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, when they got, I think it was Beethoven was playing. That was Nuno Bettencourt's guitar playing when they got Beethoven in the music shop playing the keyboard. It was actually Nuno Bettencourt's guitar, and they said, that's Nuno Bettencourt playing that stuff. That's Nuno Bettencourt playing on Janet Jackson's stuff. This guy is this guy is incredible, and yet he's not being mentioned in the same breath as some of the other ones who are out and about at the time. But he's sort of always just been there. I got to admit too, I really am enjoying listening to Gary Sharone's voice, and I've never been a huge Gary Sharone fan. But maybe age and probably a few cigarettes. But geez, he's singing well.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice, when you live in a world where Vince Neil goes, and a guy of similar age, Gary Sharone, just is fit, looking good. His neck muscles are in shape. Those Extreme look like a rock band. And I've never been a big Extreme fan, but I've got to admit, they look like a rock band that is ready to take on the world again. Yeah. They all look fit. They
hadn't recorded for 15 years, and I know that's partly because of obviously Gary Sharone went to Van Halen for a while and did one album. But the last I downloaded one of their albums the other day of Extreme because I didn't know they had so many albums out, to be honest. I stopped listening to them after 3 sides to every story. So I went and downloaded their album called Waiting for the Punchline, and that was released in 95. And I don't like any of it. So
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, pardon?
That's what I mean about them. They're a little too inconsistent, And when their 2 biggest hits were 2 acoustic-based ballads that I don't care for, they were never a band I went and sought out. But listening to these 3 singles, it's really nice just to hear a really nice, really good rock sound with a band that looks like a rock band.
Yeah.
Touring Australia soon with Living Colour.
I'll be there.
That's a big night. You're seeing 2 of the great guitarists that night.
Yeah, I know.
You really are. You're Vernon Reid and Nuno Bettencourt in one night. That's a good night, man. That's a good night.
And we're about to go, but before I do, I just noticed behind me there's a picture of a little record there of Nita Strauss, and she's back with Alice Cooper.
Back with Alice. She's just today. I haven't heard the song yet, but it got released today in the Nita Strauss and Alice Cooper single.
Yeah. So yeah, so I'll have to Demi anymore. She's gone back to Alice Cooper. Let's see what happens with that. Anyway.
That's good. Well, you know what? It's nice to see Nita Strauss says, I'm leaving Alice Cooper, but I'll come back, because why wouldn't you come back to Alice?
Yeah, exactly.
As he says, he pays his musicians. That's why he pays them.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, thank you for joining me today on episode 50.
It's been great, Chris. Thank you very much, mate. It's been great. I've enjoyed this.
I'm glad you're out of hospital, buddy.
Thank you, mate. Hopefully I don't go back for a while.
Yeah. We'll see you again one day.
Bye, everyone. Thanks,
everybody.
Chris.
Thank you. Like and subscribe. Catch you later.